What's the food? That's what I did. Yeah.
And they come out the same time. It's like I'm
Audio is 100% working.
What is that?
Yeah, they was yelling at me saying there wasn't no audio. The audio wasn't working. They was telling me on there the audio wasn't working. That's what they've been saying on there. It's hard to see it from across the room, you know what I mean? So that's why sometimes I have to go in here. You see what it sounds like.
I was going towards the spectrum of my life.
I'm a player through this speaker. Yes, we'll hear her. She's here, so she can see us here.
All right, looks like we're back.
All issues are resolved.
We appreciate it.
We're good.
That's great. Thank you guys.
And they'll be
All
able to
right,
hear.
fantastic. So we have our last panelist. She is a virtual panelist today. Thank you so much, Karen, for being here. We'd love to give you just a couple minutes to introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Karen O'Keefe, and I direct the State Policies Department at the Marijuana Policy Project. I live in the state to the north of you, which I hear I should not say the name of.
Say it.
Michigan. I've been with MPP since 2003, shortly after law school. I did some criminal defense in law school and just saw staggering sentences in Louisiana for cannabis and shocking racial disparities, and it was an issue of social equity and injustice for me, and I've had the honor of working alongside a lot of folks to roll back cannabis prohibition, pass medical cannabis, and to work on laws rooted in equity.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. We appreciate, the experience and the insight that you'll bring to the discussion today. Okay, fantastic. So let's get started with the bigger picture. What are the similarities that we're seeing between Appalachian communities and Columbus neighborhoods when it comes to cannabis, poverty, and opportunity? Whoever wants to speak can volunteer if they like.
If you could put this up, is this thing turned on? Mic check. Okay. You want to ask it again. You said it kind of fast. I want to make sure everybody heard.
No, of course. What are the similarities that you see between Appalachian communities and Columbus neighborhoods when it comes to cannabis, poverty, and opportunity?
Well, that's a good question. And I think I've been in Columbus 20 plus years, and I've been recently learning about Appalachian, Athens, and Hocking Hills, and it's a wonderful place. And I think that what's clear to me is disparity is still a thing. I said at the very beginning, information. People are not aware of what's going on. I mean, just like, for example, that there's education, people are going to college for cannabis, and I think that's in Ohio. There are college programs, and I think people are not aware that they can go to college in Ohio and get a degree for a lab technician, for example, or another part of the industry. There are other certification programs available. So I think the disparity is people aren't getting a fair chance to be a part of this big thing.
Yeah, I would add to that as far as the demographics of people who don't have equal access to employment and ownership in the cannabis industry between Appalachia and many areas of Columbus would be our poverty level. Athens has one of the highest poverty rates in our state. And, as we know, when we have higher poverty levels, we have lower access to education. And that drags us down. And with the way that the industry is scheduled set up right now, you have to have millions of dollars. You really do. And that is a disparity for, most common folk, but definitely people in poor communities. And I think we have the outcomes of being taken advantage of a lot of times. And I think it's similar both in Appalachian communities and in impoverished areas of our cities.
Well, I'm from Dayton, Ohio, so I'm a little different. I don't know what you do down here in Columbus. But I will say things though, from Dayton, Ohio, we have a strong Appalachian community in Dayton, Ohio. We also have I'll say it like this. We are very country in Dayton, Ohio. So being that we are very country, we are very Appalachian. You will be in my neighborhood and you will see a Mercedes-Benz drive down the street, and then you will see a four-wheeler going down the street. You will hear somebody say, y'all need to cut that out now. And you will hear someone giving their dissertation at the University of Dayton. That is not uncommon, so we speak of the common ground. The Appalachian community and the urban area in my neighborhood, we eat the same food, we rock the same. If you listen to our music now, it has integrated. We have country hood rap now. If you go and look up Kid Ziggy, King Ego, Joy Band, we have some of the best music now that you can dance, rock to. So we are intertwined because poverty does not discriminate. So our poor white people and our poor black people, we eat the same, we dance the same, we party the same, we have bonfires the same, and we fish the same. So our problems are just universal problems, and that's why we solve them together. So we live and we work together, so our problems are our problems together. So when we solve them together, we end up being cousins. I'm not joking. We end up saying you just kind of a little light skinned. I mean, really, you see kids just running around and they're just kids after a while. We get socially integrated, families get integrated, everybody eating the same, everybody working the same. Race becomes a construct. The poorer you are, and then to a point, the richer you are. It is only when you are building, when you think somebody's going to get more than me. It's only when you think, how did I treat this person on my way up? What am I willing to do to this person on my way up? If you're willing to be a good, kind, decent person, you don't fear anybody based off of their race. If you are not an asshole, you don't fear somebody being an asshole to you. If you're willing to offer somebody something to eat, something to drink, you pretty much welcome the karma that you're going to receive. You don't live in a state of fear. And so therefore, my knowledge is your knowledge is my knowledge. And so Appalachian problems are the same problems that we have in urban areas. And so the solution ends up being almost the same but somewhat different. But it still becomes, what is the solution to your problem? How can I help you? How can you help me? How can I make your life better? How can you make my life better? Solutions are all about how can we just simply be better. If I'm in the city, I might need to do tower gardening because I don't have a lot of space. Whereas if you are in a rural area, how do I pipe in gas? You might need a off-grid ladder bag. We might need to show you how to collect poop, and you add in water, and then we pipe in, and we have a company in Dayton called DTE Energy. If you buy stock, go buy stock in DTE Energy. If you have a stash account, go buy stash, and go look up DTE Energy. They are buying everybody's sewer waste, and they are putting it in a bladder bag. They are filtering it, and they are piping it right back into your house. And that is the gas that you are purchasing. You are buying your own poop back in the form of gas. However, if you live in a rural area, they are filling that up and filling up your propane tanks. But what if you live on a farm and you have a big farming area? You could be supplying them with the poop. So now your poop becomes our gas. Now you can profit off of your poop. But that solution becomes your problem, which is poop runoff into the water, where you're getting fined for your poop runoff, becomes our solution. So having a dialogue where you're not scared to talk to your neighbor, that is how you solve problems. So with some good weed and some conversation, you say, what is your problem? I got poop runoff. I said, well, I need some poop so I can make some methane, because I need to clean it. So when y'all got some little pound cake? So, some good weed and some pound cake, that's how you solve some problems. So, I say all of this to say, when Appalachian people and hood country people come together, you go all the way back into the history of America. And those are the people who have always solved every single problem in America. It has not been rich people. Rich people have paid for solutions, but it has always been the people who get out here and do the work, who can sit down with their neighbor, who can talk, who can come up with solutions, who have always made this country great. Thank you so much.
There you go.
We want to hear from Karen. Go ahead, Karen.
Sorry, I had a little trouble hearing. I don't think I have a whole lot to add to the conversation about Appalachia and Ohio, but it's glad to be able to listen and hear from other folks there.
Yeah, so I'll add just a little bit to everything everybody else said. At the end of the day, it comes back to humanity, right? Like us just being humans, right? I feel like we're at this inflection point in society where everybody's looking for a solution. We have to be the solution, right? You have obviously the political, the social economic issues, and that's why cannabis is such an important plant, because it really sits at the intersection of a lot of our issues, whether you're in Appalachia, whether you're here in Columbus, whether you're in the bottoms, we all have similar issues and problems. And a lot of our problems right now are coming from the elitist class, right? Whether you work for an elitist, for a corporation, or you are a slave to our gerrymandered politicians who control, pretty much the language and everything we're running by, right? So you had over 2.2 million people vote for cannabis legalization with issue 2. For a whole year, our state politicians worked on cutting that out, right, and cutting the program. So now we have SB 56. Well, at the end of the day, there has been very limited conversation, connection between urban, rural, Athens, and then your elitist neighborhoods of Upper Arlington, Bexley, New Albany, right? We still have tons of gerrymandering and places that don't even have cannabis, right? So again, we have to speak up. We have to be the voice. We have to share our stories on how cannabis has helped us, influenced us, the economic benefits of it. There's just so many different benefits that benefit whether you're in Appalachia or the city, health-wise, right? We have a terrible I mean, we're ranked in the bottom like 40th for healthcare in the state of Ohio. You know what I mean? But cannabis is something that obviously alleviates that. You look at the alcoholism rates in your Appalachian, in your urban communities. You look at the pills. So a lot of these issues are very similar, just different look, you know, different feel. And so I feel like the more that we do things like this and we see that a lot of our things are shared, right? It just may be in a different context, a different landscape, right? If I'm in the hills of Athens, nobody was really caring if I was smoking a lot of weed, right? Like, but now I'm in the city, if I'm walking around, now people might care a little bit more. But what's the difference, right? Like now I can take an edible, I can take a tincture, because now we have a little bit more access. So I believe education is huge. You look at a place like Athens, low education, low economics, not a lot of high income jobs. Same thing in the urban areas, whether you're in Dayton, whether you're in Columbus, it's not a lot of high income jobs on this street right here, but there's tons of people, tons of families that are struggling with the same exact things, cost of, inflation, right? Gas prices, we all seeing it, food prices. What do you think they're experiencing in Appalachia, right? It's the same thing here in the city. So again, it comes back to humanity, us being human, us being willing to drop the ego, right? And learn from our neighbors. So basically what Tasha said, right?
Yes, that was beautiful. Thank you everyone for sharing. Definitely just want to appreciate the word that you guys have brought thus far, as far as just all of us needing to come together despite, our differences. We actually have a lot of things in common. So it sounds like the first step is just kind of laying all of that stuff to the side and really just actually joining forces and figuring out how we can all contribute for the greater cause. So with that being said, next question is, Ohio legalized cannabis, but legalization hasn't been accessed for everyone. Why are everyday Ohioans still locked out of ownership?
Greed. Greed is the only reason we are locked out. This whole industry started out with us fighting Responsible Ohio. I've sat on the board for the Ohio Rights Group when we fought Responsible Ohio. They only wanted 12 people in the state of Ohio to have access to owning dispensaries, grow houses, and processing in the first place. You had it where they only wanted 12 people to grow all the weed in Ohio in the first place. So greed is starting to be greed. It's greedy now. Nobody new has gotten into the game. They gave all the social equity license away to the processors. They have Bill 611 is now getting processors. Standalone processors are now getting licensed. Nobody new is getting in. That is why they cannot keep any new phenotypes coming into the industry, is because they don't want to pay for your genetics. Let me.
Not go ahead.
They are disrespectful to the very people who have been doing this and taking care of patients before it was legal. Let's look at Charlotte's Web, right? That is a perfect example of not every person needs a big strand. And when you try to commercialize cannabis, right, you try to sell it like apples and oranges. Like everybody likes an apple, everybody likes an orange, and that will help every ailment. I mean, come on, some people need an eggplant, some people need a this. You don't need a large batch, but they don't want to sell a small batch because you're putting too much resources into a small batch. This plant was never made to be big batch commercialized. It was made to be small. It was made to be commercialized. It was made to be individualized. And it was made to be, if you need this, you can have some of mine. You can have some of mine. It was made to be shared. It was never meant to be large scale, cultivated for the purpose of everybody just gets to get some weed. It was literally meant to be. Not everybody if you have a specialized leukemia, 100 million people don't have that leukemia. personalized medicine. So you need small growers to grow small crops. And then if a large number of people need it, then you need it to be largely grown. But in the beginning, it needs to be done on a small scale level so that it can be grown correctly. You don't just grow weed the same. Some weed, it grows better at a different temperature, at a different water level, at different humidity. It's like raising a kid. You cannot raise kids the same. You cannot raise cannabis the same. These people now want to go to school for 3 weeks and come back and say, oh, I'm a master grower. You wouldn't know what to do with an outbreak of be quiet. Silence. Who's talking to me? It is offensive to say I went to school to grow cannabis and I grew tomatoes and now I'm a master grower. That is offensive to somebody who has spent years actually learning to grow and cure cannabis. And then you say, well, I went to school for 3 weeks. I took an online class. If you don't get what I mean? That's how offensive that is. If your doctor said, no, let me do your surgery. I took an online class. Would you let them take your appendix out? Because that is what the equivalent is. You can't say I have something that I needed to go to a doctor to get medication for. If you want to say this is medication, I went to my doctor to get qualified to go get this medication, and then you say the person who grew this medication went to school for 3 weeks. Okay. And then the people who are in charge of this says, oh, well, we're going to increase the mold count and the yeast count. To me, and that's just to me, that's like you saying, oh, I don't have AIDS, just herpes. No, we don't want anything. We want good, clean hoo-hoo. We don't want herpes hoo-hoo. Why would you say that dirty hoo-hoo is industry hoo-hoo? You should brag and say, Michigan has 10,000 count mold. Ohio does not. Our hoo-hoo is cleaner than Michigan. It just makes no sense. And let's face it, if the vape oils were at 90%, but we accepted 10 so that it can stay pliable, right? You put a little coconut oil in there so it doesn't burn because it's not thick. Now they want it to go down to 70%. Sweetheart, cocaine is cocaine, but cocaine with baking soda is crack. So if they take it down to 70%, what's in your formula? Put a little baking soda in the weed now? Are we doing crack? Because his recipe is not his recipe, is not his recipe. So what's in your recipe? What's in your recipe? What's in your recipe? Am I gonna get addicted to this? Is this gonna make me cuckoo for Cocoa Puff? No, y'all done turn this into real drugs. No. Y'all, this is drugs now. This is not medicine, this is drugs. And that's only greed. Because most of the people who started out in this had good intentions of, I want to service the people. I want to make sure. Like, how do the people who obviously, let's just say it, who was out here already selling weed, who was already out here making medicine for people, have more ethics than the people who took a Hippocratic oath to do no harm? How do the people who are writing your laws are now allowing, with no scientific evidence of what will happen if you dilute the cannabis with an unknown substance?
Because we are the medicine. They practice medicine.
I tell them all the time, I'm a healer, you're a dealer. I give the best medicine. You giving out drugs. And all it stems from is nothing but greed. They want to run systems as fast as they can. They want to dilute stuff and rinse off stuff. Okay, let's talk about remediation. How many people know how your weed is remediated with that peroxide? Y'all want to see how what's in your vape oil? That's the stuff that didn't make it to the floor. That's the stuff that didn't make it. And so they said, oh, well, we can't throw it away. This is our byproduct. We just gonna rinse it off. We just gonna rinse it off, and then we're gonna put it through a process and put it through a vape cartridge, and then you can smoke it. Have you noticed how ever since now weed has become illegal, all these people are now allergic to weed and throwing up? And we never had this problem when you was buying weed off the streets. It may have been old school brick weed with seeds and stems, but you never see nobody get sick and throwing up and coughing off of it. Not until they got it in their hands. You was safer when the weed was on the street. Greed means they're cutting costs so that they can make the most money and they don't give a fuck about your health. They cutting it so fast that's why it's getting mold in the containers, because their weed is trash. They're trying to get it to you so fast that the weed is not even cured correctly. It's still drying in those plastic containers. And then y'all just smoking the hell that weed, that mold. Because when the weed is trash, it don't sell. So it sits on the container, it sits on the shelves. You've never seen a weed man have product on his shelf. Never. Usually a weed man say, I have to go get some more. Not letting me go to the back room because I'm still fully stocked. We worse off. Because you have people who don't respect the weed game. You have people who don't even participate in weed, who are out here making up laws, rules, regulations, because all they want is money. They don't care about the patient. They don't care about the quality of life. They don't even come up with, what are we going to do with the money after we make it? They don't have a plan of action. So what they say is, oh, we're going to put the money right back in general fund. And where does that go? Right back to the militarized the police. This is all about greed. If they didn't want weed, they didn't want the weed. They wanted the money that we brought. The only reason we are allowed to have cannabis is because they wanted the money that cannabis brings in. But if they truly wanted to help us, they would make sure that their standards were as high as the weed man and that they were as responsible as the weed man. Whose weed man didn't make sure that the old ladies had something on Sunday or that the kids had a baseball league that was funded? See, that's what in the hood or in the rural areas,
It took away from the community.
it took away from the community. The weed man actually benefited the community.
They're commercializing our community through cannabis. So what they're doing is they're dispersing the community even more, they're splitting us up even more and charging us money to come together. And tell you, oh, well, you can go have a joint with your friend, but you gotta come to dispensary first.
And then you can't be social.
You better be at home.
And cannabis is a social thing, but we can't have a consumption lounge.
Put it in your trunk, then go over to your friend's house. Right? I
And
was
if you
just-
pass it to your friend, that's drug trafficking.
But go ahead and stop at the gas station and pick that six back up, pick some ride shotgun.
Right.
Don't worry about that. Pick up that fifth, pick some
Yeah.
ride shotgun.
Yeah, we're getting back into the days of reaper madness with this Senate bill.
Yep.
People do need to be aware of the changes in the laws and how it's gonna affect all of us. I agree with Tasha that greed is the root of most of our issues and is what separates us from being able to have, access to this industry. I think there should be room for both commercial grows and craft grows. I see other states doing that. Michigan And, yeah, it seems to be working out okay, where if you have a few $1,000s, you can apply for a license, and that's how it should be, because we live in America, and we should have free enterprise in America. So that's what I have to say about it.
All right, so after all that, I think you probably said everything, but a couple things I would like to share. The first thing is that, and I said at the beginning, but I'm gonna say it again, one of the biggest problems, I agree to it, but another thing is dissemination of information. When they did Responsible Ohio, there was mass confusion about what that was, and by the time everybody figured out what that might be, a lot of people rejected it, and we didn't get recreational that year, and then we end up settling for House Bill 523. Okay, now a lot of people might not remember this, but House Bill 523 is what legalized medical marijuana in Ohio. That's how a lot of us got our medical cards finally, and many of us remember making those trips to Michigan because there wasn't anything there. And I'm not saying I officially made a trip to Michigan, but I'm saying there were many people who went there because there were no dispensaries open. And when the dispensaries finally came online, and I can tell you, I had my card, and I was one of the first people to go into a dispensary in Ohio, okay? A lot of people were very upset that day because they didn't even have enough stuff to serve 100 people. And, you know, we learned about 2.8s, and we're still trying to understand why we had 2.8s, but, you know, that was rejected right away. We were told in the beginning that there will never be any vapes, there won't be any gummies, there won't be any concentrates. Well, that didn't pan out at all, because I think we got all of those things and then some. I think the number one thing that people still weren't getting was the information, like, how do I become a license holder? How do I apply? And then when the second round came up, and the cost to apply was literally less than $10,000 to apply, people applied and won those tickets, and no one even knew who those people were because the lottery commission was in charge of drawing names. And any other time we've watched a lottery drawing, we've all known, we've seen it every day at 7 o'clock. We watch them draw the numbers, okay? Now this event, this second round license thing, no one know how that was handled because we never saw nothing get drawn. Everything went through a back door. We'll continue this situation on further is that we had this big divide. We had the farm bill, we had people already operating as hemp businesses legally, and people were selling CBD. We had signs everywhere, free CBD. They was giving it away, it was free. And none of us even knew until one of us or a few of us decided to go try some CBD that, hey, wait a minute, this actually does something. Wait, I'm not high. Wait a minute, my anxiety's better. Oh, wait a minute, my pain went down. And wait, this isn't the same thing they sell in the dispensary? No, it's not. This is low THC. So at a point when people were starting to actually see the benefits in CBD, here we are now bringing in the medical cannabis program. And here we are again, not educating people about what medical cannabis is, what is the difference, why is this something different than what I can go get at the CBD store, the waterbed store, the head shop store, whatever. And it continued to go on. And eventually we had this divide where we have these stores that are saying, hey, you don't have to have a medical card to come here and buy stuff. We're just like up north. We got some jars of CBD right here. You can try it out and it's totally legal. There's no crime being committed here. You can go outside and smoke CBD. There was no restriction on smoking CBD outside. They didn't care. People was burning it up wherever they wanted. And then they start realizing, wait a minute. Are these the same thing or are they not? Then I think the big confusion came in with the laws. Wait a minute, we made a mistake. And all of a sudden now we're realizing that we didn't tell anybody about this stuff. We didn't even know what we were talking about. And now there's this big rush to fix it because who launches a program without an age limit? I don't know anybody who would allow a child to buy alcohol. But here we're in a world where we have legislators telling us in front of everybody on recording in the state house that they're more concerned with kids getting drinks of hemp than Miller Lite. And I'm still trying to understand how Miller Lite got name dropped when this here in Columbus, this is a Budweiser city. Hello? I don't know why. I'm confused as to why we have let them divide everybody. I'm still not understanding why we can't all come together and try to work on something that makes sense for Ohio. We cannot continue to operate as a division. We can't build the civil weed war in Ohio. It doesn't make sense. It won't help nobody. I'm saying this to everybody who's watching this because a lot of people watching this. I'm live streaming this. Ohio Cannabis Report is live streaming this. The bottom line is the only way all this stuff gets fixed and we actually beat Michigan, because again, I'm from Ohio. I went to school in Michigan. I know what's up there. We all know what's up there. But at the end, we got to start saying we are Buckeyes. This is our state, and we got to start defending our own state and get that money here. And that means supporting local. That means supporting local businesses. That means that companies should be working together. And that's what has to happen. It cannot continue to be us versus them or they. It will not work that way. If we don't come together as a community, and I mean everybody, I don't care whether you love hemp, I don't care whether you love cannabis, it's all still going to end up being weed when you burn it, okay? And it's going to smell the same when it hit the air. So a lot of people, I think, got lost in all these laws and the confusion with the national law. They can't figure out what they want to do. And then at the same time, people that want to get a dispensary, somebody says, I want to buy this, I want to open a dispensary. I heard somebody was going to say that. Well, did you know they're selling them on LinkedIn right now? If you want to buy one, go on LinkedIn. Because they're selling them right there on LinkedIn, like it's Facebook Marketplace. And I'm not talking about in another state. I'm talking about dispensaries in Ohio for sale right now on LinkedIn. Okay? And I'm not talking millions of dollars like they were before, because guess what? As she alluded to, people were upset. They're not rushing to the dispensary because they don't. What is the incentive? If we don't even know who the companies are, where the stuff comes from, what are they using? Like she said before, this thing about the mold and all these things, again, it's all going back to education. Why are we not being given a proper seat at the table to not just learn about the plant itself and the THC and indica? Where is the business opportunities? How do we not know about we can bank with cannabis now? You didn't even know that there's a bank here in Columbus, Ohio that does cannabis business, because wow, no one's advertising it. Everybody's afraid. We're not allowed to advertise on the radio. We're not allowed to have a billboard. But if you run a hemp business, you could rent a billboard. You could drive around with stickers all over your car. But it never made sense. We're all still talking about the same thing even today. And so what I'm getting at here is that part of fixing the problem is the information. If somebody wants to be in the business, they need to know how to get in. Where do they go to school at to get that information? If someone here in this room wants to open a dispensary, I just gave you one way to go find out how to get one. I'm telling you, LinkedIn. I ain't talking about Craigslist. I'm talking LinkedIn. And maybe even at one point there was a dispensary for sale on Facebook Marketplace, an Ohio dispensary. Why is that? Because they're not making no money, okay? Some of them are, some of them isn't. But part of that is education. They're not educated in there. We're not educating out here. It's a blockade. So in order for us to fix this problem, we have to be willing to listen to each other. One of the biggest things that I learned as a social media influencer, as someone trying to be a public speaker, is feedback and listening to not just what fits my narrative, but what others have to say. Just because someone doesn't like an organization, that doesn't mean I should be rude and mean to everyone that's a part of that organization, or I should continue to say things about another organization because I don't agree with their beliefs. What I should be trying to do is figure out, how do I get to that organization? How do we get ourselves in a room together where we can figure out sensible solutions? And I want to share something with y'all, and this is something y'all don't know, and the people watching don't know this, but there was a live stream, there was a Zoom just the other day, where a bunch of people that, not in this room, and a bunch of company people, cannabis people, they all got together on Ohio State's law thing, okay? And even the people that were part of the hemp thing, they were in there too. The lawyers, people that say they were part of Issue 2, they were all there. Where were we at in this meeting? Did y'all even know that this Zoom was happening? You didn't. But what I encourage you to do is to go and watch it on their site and listen to what they had to say at the end. Because at the end, I think it's all coming to the same point. Success, what does that look like for Ohio in the cannabis space? it looks like us all coming together and working together on something that makes sense, that we can all vote on, agree on. And constitutional amendment or not, I understand that might be the way we should go, but it also might not be, because if we do something and it goes into a constitutional amendment, it will be very difficult for us to change it at that point. So I think people got to start thinking about, again, back to what I said, the education information of how do we participate in the lawmaking process? What does that look like? More town halls, more meetings like what Gerald's doing here. And that is what's going to bring us together. Continuing to just point fingers on and on and on. Yeah, it sounds good at first, but at the end, how does it lead to action? How does it lead to changing the narrative? How do we lead to, how does Ohio win? Because at the end of the day, go Bucks, it's time for us to win.
I love that. And I'll just piggyback a little bit. Like, one of my biggest things is social equity, right? I come from DC. 2 of my friends own cannabis dispensaries in DC, and they're my age. You know what I mean? So you get to a point where you like, we're in this city, we got this brand new industry, and can't nobody really get in, right? If you don't have millions of dollars, if you don't have the money for the lottery or whatever. But obviously, we all know cannabis, right? We all know that we can individualize it, we can grow our own little batches. And so for me, I understood business economics. You look at, a lot of these cities, and you look at the urban cores, and you like, this is what we do. You know what I mean? But we're not allowed to participate. And so one of the things that keeps us underground, right? And the reason I started speaking so vocally, so loudly, and being so disruptive online was because, again, 17, 18 years old, I'm not able to consume cannabis, but I'm able to go bash my brains in on the football field, get cheered on by thousands of people. Back then, we didn't have name, image, and likeness, right? So again, you got all these kids coming from inner cities. That what's the goal? The goal is to make money, right? The goal, everybody, oh, you got a scholarship. No, the goal is to get to the bag, right? Because we come from poverty, right? We come from working class America, but we come from where everybody we know sell a little bag or something, right? So again, why would I want to go to a dispensary when my cousin got the bag? He got better treated than the dispensary. And so for me, it was seeing how silent people were. And then it clicked, because it was like, well, this is still new. Right? Like, we've been underground for so long, but then now you allow these politicians to come in and start doing what they want to do. You got outside investors, right? Our AG just sued 9 multi-state operators for running a cartel, which most people don't even know what the fuck is going on, right? You have 9 out-of-state, MSO, multi-state operators that are basically doing backroom deals with each other to stock each other's shelves, give each other discounts, and set the price, right? And so that's why people are like, well, the price is too high, I'll just go to Michigan. So again, that locks us out of the game, but people don't know what's going on. A few years back, about 6 years ago, the State House wasn't even broadcasting the hearings, and people didn't even notice. They have live streaming. You can go on ohiochannel.gov and watch your state politicians, just like he said, say we would rather give our kids Miller Lite than get cannabis or THC. This is your politicians. These are the ones that if you got a job, you pay taxes, your tax money is going to them. Mm-hmm. The General Revenue Fund, getting all the social equity dollars. All right, Columbus got millions of dollars. Where is that money going? They didn't sponsor this event, but how are we going to educate our community if we're not getting the resources, we're not getting the information? I went to college for healthcare administration. Did we learn about the endocannabinoid system? No. Did we learn about THC? No. Did we learn about CBD? No. Take the pill, take the pill, take the pill. How many friends have I lost because of injury and they started using pills and they couldn't get off of it? And so again, it's an issue of greed, but not knowing and not doing the work. All of us in this room have to do the work. It's not good enough to have legalization. Speak up, right? Share your story. Why do you use it? Right? The reason is a lot of people don't know why we use it. They just think we're drug addicts, right? They just think, oh, you just want to be stoned. It's the same tropes over and over and over again. I smoke weed and go work out. I smoke weed and go to my garden. I smoke weed and hang out with my babies, my children, right? It's not stopping me from living a progressive, happy life, but it's helping me. And we have to stop being afraid to vocalize who we are and why we're doing this. It's legal now. Use your voice, set up a community event. I literally had this idea, God put it on me. I was like, I gotta do it, right? I got the event space for free. I asked these guys to help me out and they gladly did it. We can all do something like this. I'm not more special than anybody in this room. but we have to be willing to do the work. A lot of people want to be entertained. I get it, we're tired, we're busy, we're stretched, but this is the work that we have to do. We have to have the conversations in authentic spaces where folks can speak their truth and their piece, right? And not have to feel like, oh, I'm at the State House, I gotta button up, right? Because that's what they do. What does corporate America do? You gotta dress up, you gotta be out of your element, right? Especially if you're coming from where we from, that's discrimination on principle as soon as you walk in the door, right? And so you take social equity out, which is supposed to help smaller communities be able to afford and get into the business. But now guess what? We can't do that. So we gotta stay underground, which now we get fines, criminal penalties, and they're gonna start locking folks right back up again. And so now you got a legal industry, but you can't consume it anywhere if you don't own a home, right? You gotta consume it in a home, all right? Now you're leased and have, things in the lease. If you're smoking or growing at your house, you get evicted. If you get popped for a drug test at your job and they fire you, now you don't get your unemployment benefits. Now you drive in and it smells in the car. Now probable cause. What do we get locked up for? It smells like weed. Get out the car, let me search, right? Now you got paraphernalia. And so it all circles back to, one, us not speaking up, right? A lot of us were at the State House and spoke up. Over 40 people came to the State House consistently to speak up. There should be hundreds of us showing up, because I know it's way more than 40 right here in this city that has something to do with cannabis and would love to be a part of the industry. And so again, it comes to all of us supporting one another. You may not like what everybody does, right? You may not like somebody's personality, but if we can all agree on cannabis, what more do you need? So again, speak up, use your voice, use your platform, create a platform. Ohio Cannabis Report came from an idea, right? We have over 300 subscriptions on YouTube. We have thousands of followers on Instagram, and I've been working at limited capacity because I've been a stay-at-home dad for 8 years. So everything I've been doing is on top of being a dad full-time. You know what I mean? And I'm doing it for free. Nobody's paying me to do this. Nobody's putting money in my pockets, right? But everybody want to get money, and I get it. But at the end of the day, if you don't want to work for somebody, you got to build some shit yourself. And so again, how do you do that collectively, right? If we all have our little small micro niches, right? I'm fine being in the media lane. I don't want to grow weed. I don't want to sell weed, but I can talk about it. I can create community rooms where we can have spaces to have conversations. I don't know everything about growing weed, but I love my friends who do. And so we need to elevate voices, right? We need to elevate stories, and that's why we started Ohio Cannabis Report, and I'm sure he started Ohio Cannabis Live, right? To get those voices out. We have the internet now, use it, right? Everything shouldn't be for entertainment purposes only. And I feel like that's where we are. Everybody just want to be entertained. You know what I mean? Do some fucking work. Stop expecting somebody else to do the work. Stop expecting the government to do the work, right? We have to do the work.
Thank you for that. Did we want to give Karen a chance to answer a question or share?
Sure. So building on why there's not more opportunity in small throughout the state, the legislature, as probably has been discussed, has been completely contemptuous of the will of the people. They didn't support legalization. The Senate overwhelmingly passed a resolution against legalization before it passed. And since then, they've been trying to whittle away at both legalization itself and particularly the social equity and jobs program. Is there an echo? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
You're good.
So last June, the legislature passed a budget that completely eliminated the entire social equity and jobs program. It was supposed to get 36% of all of the tax revenue that went into cannabis. And that funding was supposed to be available for technical assistance, for program, for social equity and jobs, and to study and fund criminal justice reform. And it was completely eliminated by the legislature. And then, as was probably discussed, the legislature passed SB 56, which also got rid of all of the 40 of the level 3 growers, which were supposed to be small growers. It capped the total number of stores that can be allowed statewide at 400. So if you get to 400 stores and some city or town wants to opt in and have a store, it won't be able to do so if it hits the cap. And it has a large buffer, I think it's a mile between each dispensary. And of course, as I think was discussed, it's now illegal to have cannabis that did not come from either an Ohio retailer or from home grow. So if you have cannabis that's simply produced illegally or then, or you got it from Michigan, then you're a criminal again. We saw something similar in Minnesota where they have an open container law and 3,500 people have been arrested for having cannabis in an open container since legalization. That's more arrests than you have in some states where there's prohibition. So at this point, with this having passed at the state level, encourage folks to engage with local city government and police department, urge them not to enforce this. Voters spoke loud and clear. They don't want people to be criminalized. They want an equitable program, and the state legislature didn't care and tried to undo it as much as they can. But the vast majority of arrests are going to be by local police officers, so it's worth trying to engage and make sure that doesn't happen, because that's where we're going to see people get caught up again with criminalization.
So I went to our county commissioners meeting, spoke with all three of our commissioners and let them know that Senate Bill 56 is going to require a minimum or a mandatory 3-day jail, housing in jail for 3 days during the first offense of driving while smoking or having someone smoking in the car. It's in the, I read the comprehensive analysis through our legislative service committee. Before I went there, there's a lot of good information in that, and it's on our .gov. But I think that's a really valid point to try to reach out to your local administration, because, like, for instance, our commissioners had no idea. And they are the ones who will have to cover the budget for this, right? Now, they will need a budget to put people in jail for cannabis offenses in a state where we've legalized. So this is harks back to what Anthony was saying too, which is just the lack of available information. And what Gerald's saying, like, we are the ones who are gonna get that information out there. So don't be afraid to talk to your local representatives. It's a very important thing to do, because they don't know either what's going on.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you guys so much for going over ownership and opportunity. Sounds like a resounding where there's a lack of knowledge and lack of resources, and also greed being the reasons why a lot of us are locked out of ownership right now in Ohio. Moving on to public health and reinvestment. How can cannabis policy help address the opioid crisis and support harm reduction instead of punishment?
I want to talk on that one. I want to talk because I feel very strongly about this. So one of the reasons that I started using cannabis medicinally was because I have a traumatic brain injury and I suffer from severe or chronic pain. And for many years before I figured out cannabis was a medicine, I was being given gabapentin and tramadol and oxycodone, and I can name them all, but a lot of y'all already heard of these medications. And telling me, you know, there really wasn't anything wrong with me. I'm just gonna have pain the rest of my life, and I should just suck it up and just deal with it. And this is with no diagnosis. So, you know, a lot of times I go to the doctor, oh, it's just abdominal pain today. Oh, it's back pain today. But why? You know, we have these conditions, and we're going to our doctors to get treatment for the condition, but then the doctor don't even really know. He's Google searching it when you're not looking, or using AI. He doesn't even really know what's wrong with you. Because most of the doctors these days have been pretty much handicapped on what they can actually do. And then when they do think you are in pain, they're not allowed to give you any pain medication. They send you to what used to be called pain management, which is pretty much just physical therapy now, because pain management was so mismanaged and wrongly abused. So now we have people who realize that cannabis is helping for medical reasons, for pain, nausea, cancer treatment, a lot of other elements. And I think that because of this, even the companies that are making opiates are starting to realize, hey, our sales are down because people are finding relief from using different forms of cannabis or hemp or CBD, whatever you want to call it. And it's cheaper in some cases or easier to get than dealing with their insurance company. And this brings us to something I hope we talk about, is how now even our government is considering allowing Medicare to cover CBD. And this is something I was talking about on my stream just yesterday. So I think even the government realized there is an opportunity to do something about the opiate crisis, and it is still a crisis. And again, there are people who do need pain medication, and cannabis may not be working for them, partly because they may not be getting access to the right cannabis or being educated on what type of cannabis they should use. And we have a market where it's THC focused. High THC is the way to go when it really isn't. And we're, again, back to that same gap where people aren't getting educated about the different strains. It's like we know about tomatoes and apples and oranges, but we don't have the same level of knowledge when it comes to different strains of cannabis and what they do and don't do. So again, I think there's a lot more work that can be done, especially as we have a more broader conversation with our community as a whole, especially poor communities, Appalachia, disadvantaged communities, about how they can transition away from alcohol, opiate abuse, and other drugs to cannabis or hemp or CBD and actually get better, start feeling better. So I feel very strongly about this. I was somebody who was able to find relief using cannabis as an alternative to opiate pain medication. However, I also have pancreatitis, and it's a very painful condition. And I have to be honest, sometimes cannabis can't beat it. But it has been doing a great job, especially when I get to grow my own. And again, another area where people could learn. Once you learn how to grow your own, it's more than just getting a fancy strain because your friends got it or they're saying it's the greatest thing. It's finding out what strains that you can grow that will actually make you feel better, make you feel good, whatever that is for you, whether that's pain relief, anxiety relief, stress relief, or you just like it because of the energy that it brings to your soul. Once you learn what plants are for you, it makes it a lot easier for you to decide what to grow. And also, if you have to visit a dispensary or a store, it makes it a lot easier to know what to buy.
I would add with the commercial market, the way it is right now, it's really hard on patients because sometimes they'll change up what kind of medicine they're offering. And then if you found something that works good for you, then you can't get that anymore and causes problems. That's why Ohio needs small caregivers and craft growers.
And that's particularly because your body will get used to a particular strain, and you have to keep switching it up. Your body, you have to keep switching it up. Now, what I've done with harm reduction is this. How many people know that a lot of the recovery programs are paid for by the pharmaceutical companies? And if you go into the detox facilities, you have to use their drugs.
For life. For life. Let people be on that recovery.
Like if you use Suboxone, you use Monoxicol, you have to use their drugs.
On their regimen.
You cannot stay there.
On their regimen too. It has to be their amount. Same thing with the pain pills.
You have to use, and if you don't, that's like refusing care.
Yep.
And then they put you out.
Yep.
So if you say, go in there and say, hey, but I'm not on opioids, I'm not on heroin, I smoke crack, that's not even what I do. You still have to be on their drugs because that's who's paying for your care.
Yep.
So if you say, I don't want to do this, I want to use just cannabis, there's no place where you can go where you can say, but the first thing they're going to give you is a muscle relaxer and they're going to give you something for nausea. I mean, you say, the cannabis will do that for me. I don't need that, I can just use cannabis. There are no recovery homes where you can just use cannabis. I had the unique experience at a place called the 115 program in Dayton, where if I got you your medical marijuana card because it was medication by a doctor, they would put it in a locked box so you could self-medicate and you could actually use your medical marijuana instead of their drugs. That was operated by Google and then they closed down. That was the only place in the city. I've had luck with some judges. So if you were on probation, as long as you got your medical marijuana card, as long as you tested with nothing but cannabis in, when you APs you, as long as you only had cannabis in your, they would consider you dropping clean if only you had cannabis in your thing. Harm reduction
Excuse me. Say that one more time, because you just dropped a big piece of information there. You better say that one more
You
time.
just slid right over.
Yeah, say that one more time so we can all hear that.
Oh, okay.
Yes, what you just said.
If you work with the judge, and some judges will let you get your medical marijuana card, and as long as you drop with nothing but cannabis in your system, they will let you use cannabis. As long as you don't have crack, cocaine, fentanyl, heroin, none of the other drugs that you were on, just cannabis. If you have your medical marijuana card, if they say you have to go get a job or do some community service or whatever it is else you have to do, as long as you're compliant, then you're good. I've had some success with certain judges who have let me send clients through. It is up to the judge. So having judges who are not anti-cannabis, having some judges who are open and receptive to, as long as you have your medical marijuana card, I won't discriminate against that. It works. And you don't have the anxiety, you don't have the stress, you don't have the pressure. You know, at least if I'm feeling stressed out, I'm feeling anxious, I can smoke me a little weed. I get them a vape pen, and they just hit their little vape and keep it moving. Excuse me. It doesn't become a major issue. You don't have the stress of, am I gonna test 30? Now it just becomes as long as I got my weed, I'm good. I can go get a job, and I can do this, I can stay focused, I can do this. You don't have the same kind of stress and pressure of being a failure. And that's what most of those people feel is, I'm going to be a failure. So when you feel like somebody's helping me, I'm not going to be a failure, somebody's listening to me, somebody understands me, somebody wants me to succeed, most of us just want to be seen, heard, and supported. And that's how you make a success story. When you feel like I have a support system and somebody wants me to succeed, and all I have to do is utilize the skills and tools that somebody has given me to succeed, most people want to succeed. So harm reduction means education. It also means opening up your mouth and saying what you need in order to succeed. It means being so self-aware that you're willing to step out of your box. You're willing to be uncomfortable to say, okay, yes, I do have this issue, but here's how I address it. And if you want me to be successful, here's what I need to be. You gotta self-advocate. You gotta self-advocate. You have got to self-advocate. Let me say that again. You have got to self-advocate. You gotta find you a lawyer. You gotta find you a case manager who really believes you wanna be successful. But that means you gotta show up. You gotta show up clean, you gotta show up dressed, you gotta show up like you wanna be successful. And you will attract people who want you to be successful. Yep, that's it.
Dropped it, right? She dropped the knowledge on that one for sure, yes. Yeah, let's give her a round of applause on that. She dropped some knowledge there.
Did anybody else want to add anything for that?
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna just add on to what Tasha said. Advocate for yourself, right? Like, again, we will advocate to dog athletes, entertainers. That movie was trash, this and that. But we have to advocate for ourselves, and we also have to advocate for others, right? Like, if you're in a position of privilege, a position of power, you have to understand that you are in that position and that you have to help other people, right? I understand my privilege, right? But I also understand that there's levels to privilege. And so until we keep people accountable, and that's why I started Ohio Cannabis Report, that's why I started following some of these politicians and talking, and because at the end of the day, nobody's holding them accountable. You know what I mean? So they're allowed to do what they want to do. These business leaders, don't nobody know who the CEO is. So if you don't know who the CEO of the company is, how are you going to know how they operate the company? If you don't get invited to the private events, how are you going to know what's going on? If they got alcohol and liquor at every event and no cannabis, like, so harm reduction is understanding, one, your position, understanding who can advocate for you, being a part of groups like this, contacting folks like Tasha Roundtree, and understanding that there are people that are willing to work with you and willing to help you, but you have to do the work. You can't expect that the system is already moving, right? We say the system is broken. No, it's not. It is functioning exactly how it's supposed to function, right? So the people that get off, why do they get off? Because they're connected, right? Mom, dad, a business owner, lawyer, judge, doctor, right? So once you start getting in certain spaces, you understand it's not what you know, it's who you know and who knows you, right? And so we see it every single day, and we're like, well, why did this person get off? Why did that person? Because guess what? Somebody advocated for them, right? The judge saw himself in that person, right? The lawyer, right? So we have to understand there's tons of resources available to us, but if you don't go searching, if you don't go looking, if you don't ask the right questions, then we stay in a cycle, right? And so a lot of us, a lot of our communities, especially in Appalachia, especially in urban cities, we have to break a lot of the cycles that we perpetuate, right? Because either bad information, misinformation, or we're just not doing the work, right? Or we're not willing to drop the ego and pride to go ask for help, right? Especially us as Black men, right? A lot of us, especially in the cannabis space, we have to come together. Everything can't be ego-based. Everything can't be, well, I got my shit, he got to get, or we competing, right? It's a lot of that, right? And I get it. There's a form of healthy competition, but there's also greed. There's also, in cannabis, you can't operate in cannabis like that. It doesn't work, and we're seeing it right now, right? And so I think it's important when it comes to harm reduction, speaking up for yourself. That's why I said share your story. We have 2 great platforms. I'm always looking for people to interview. HITV, always looking for people to get your voice out there, because that's what builds coalitions. That's what makes people feel comfortable to come out and say, man, I'm dealing with something similar to that, right? I'm an author, right? So write your story, right? We got the internet, use it, right? Everything don't have to be looking perfect and pretty. Share your story. That's what the purpose of these platforms are, right? It's not to just sit there and celebrate celebrities all day, right? We'll like a celebrity's page, but we won't support our local friends. And we have to break that cycle. And it starts in this room, it starts in our communities and our families, and dropping that ego.
Okay, fantastic. Did Karen want to add anything to the discussion regarding public health and reinvestment?
Sure, yeah, I completely agree on sharing your stories. When I started working on cannabis policy, there were 8 medical cannabis states and no legalization states. And the reason we have gotten as far as we have is because of people sharing their stories and changing minds about cannabis and opinions. And every piece of progress, whether it's, a major employer stopping drug testing for cannabis or changing state laws, is thanks to those people that stepped out of their comfort zone and shared what cannabis did for them and broke down a lot of assumptions that were keeping us back in the days of reefer madness. A couple other points on cannabis and harm reduction. As part of issue 2, voters approved 25% of the funding was supposed to go to substance abuse and addiction fund. And that was stripped away by the legislature too and was put into the general fund. In addition, there were non-discrimination protections. If for so many people, cannabis itself is harm reduction. It's using cannabis instead of opioids, or to reduce their use of opioids, or instead of the long-term use of large amounts of over-the-counter drugs. But if you have to give up your entire profession or lose your job because of using cannabis, it really puts people in a really difficult position. And so as part of legalization, issue 2 had said that a person can't lose their professional license or occupational license just for using cannabis. And also that they couldn't lose their children. All of those were stripped away as part of SB 56. I don't know if there's any possibility of them being restored by the legislature, but that was a really important provision to let people have the opportunity. However, many of those protections remain for medical cannabis. So if somebody has their ID card, in a lot of cases, they can't be discriminated against in those ways. And that's all I wanted to share.
Thank you so much.
That's interesting. So you're saying that the rollbacks and the protections for things like employment and medical procedures and housing and custody are protected still under the medical law, but not protected for recreational users under SB 56?
There's no employment protections even for medical. There's the opposite. If a person's fired for testing positive, they can't collect unemployment insurance as part of SB 56, but the other protections, and I'll drop in the chat a link to summaries or the actual language that shows what protection there is for medical cannabis. So there still are pretty strong medical protections, but the legislature completely eliminated them, even though we brought it up to the committee of conference at many, many times at hearings. So I also say get involved in elections. It's an election year. Talk to your candidates for state house and state senate. Ask them where they stand on issues you care about related to cannabis, and hold them accountable.
Is that the same thing as organ transplant?
Yeah, that was one of the things that there's, some of you may not know, but reading that legislative service analysis, they have removed the restrictions against, people that need organ transplants or people even in custody battles. When we voted at issue 2, we voted to not have those things considered, to not have cannabis considered in things like custody and organ donation, and they've removed those prohibitions from the law.
Okay, we have one last question before we switch over to the Q&A. And this is regarding coalition building. What would it look like for rural and urban Ohio to work together on cannabis equity?
I think it would look awesome. I think it would look like cannabis cups. I think it would look like tours. I think it would look like glamping. Does anybody know what glamping is? Glamping, Airbnb sites. I think it would look like retreats. I think it would look like travel and tourism. I think it would look like spa retreats. I think it would look like events. I think it would look like when you want to get away from the city, you can go out into the hiking, you can go out into the country and get away from the city. But I also think it would look like, how nice would that be if we could dress up and go see like the violin strings and smoke a blunt while you listen to some jazz music at the Philharmonic. What it would look like to go see like Circus du Soleil, and I feel like this. Our community, our county prosecutor spends so much money in Dayton to make sure that for St. Patrick's Day, everybody gets home safely. They put a line in the budget for ride home share so that nobody has to drive. You can ride taxis free, you can ride the bus free, every bar has an event. I was like, why can't y'all do that for the weed people? Y'all do that for people who wanna go drink and go bar hopping. Why can't y'all do that for every social club or so that people can be safe? Make us safe so like you do the people who wanna drink. I feel like y'all act like y'all want weed money but don't know how to get no money. Like, if y'all want it, get it. So I feel like if y'all just let us do what we do, and like I said, it was over $24 million in that social equity fund where we could have used it for harm reduction, we could have used it to clean up records, we could have used it for capital for startup businesses or to expand businesses. We could have used it for whatever, but I feel like, come on, we can make some adult playgrounds with some inflatables, just some getaways for adults. I feel like that is where we can have some fun. And that's what I think all of us need to do is put all the BS aside. Come on, y'all, let's just go to the grown folks playground. I'm sure some of y'all may have heard songs called Fuck Them Kids. Let's go to the park, fuck them kids, and let's go where grown folks go. and have a good time and laugh, as most of us need some more laugh therapy. Most of us have a midsection, and that's not even from the food we eat, that's from the cortisol, from the stress. That's from worrying and from pressure of life. Let's go have some good food, and let's go have some Appalachian tea, and let's go just chill out for a little while and enjoy some life. And I think that's what a good coalition and a good working together would do for us. Let's have a bonfire, let's have a rodeo, let's do some two-stepping, some kazamba at night, and let's have some fun. That is what true cannabis enthusiasts want to do. If you ask any officer, who would you rather run up on? A cannabis person or an alcoholic or somebody who's been drinking? They're gonna take the weed person, hands down, all the time. Because we're more pleasant people. So I think
Preach on that.
I think if you get the pleasant people to say, let's be pleasant, we gonna win all the time.
All right, I'd like to jump in on this one. So I've been saying this for a while. People who are watching this on YouTube, it might only be 10 people watching, but I'm gonna say this again. Ohio lawmakers, Ohio dispensary owners, Ohio people, we are missing the biggest opportunity here in tourism. Ohio could be the new spot. I went out to Vegas for MJ BizCon, and what did I learn out there? Crazy, they got it figured out. They got a dispensary there. Okay, wait for this. 3 acres, 3-acre dispensary, okay, with a walkout deck, with an indoor consumption lounge in the dispensary where you can buy it there from them and walk right out with it and smoke in their backyard. They've got a stage where they can do concerts at the dispensary. So I mean, we could be doing so much more. When it comes to housing, we look at this new housing thing with Senate Bill 56, and you gotta think about it. If I'm a landlord, if I own property right now, well, I don't want to turn away cannabis consumers. I want their money too. Obviously, I have to protect my property, but we're here again missing a tourist opportunity. People are coming to Ohio with curiosity. Those folks from Michigan, y'all talk a lot about them, but they come in here too, and they got curiosity as well, and they're buying weed at the dispensary because they're curious to know who really has the good smoke. So that's happening, okay? And we could be utilizing that tourist dollars to fix roads, bridges, all kinds of things. They wanted money for the General Revenue Fund. Well, let's open Ohio up for tourism, and let's start thinking about how, as you said, what would we do with Appalachia? Just imagine if we could have cannabis events in Hocking Hills. I mean, come on. Think about what Old Men's Cave would be like if you could have an event there. Think about all the other open air. There's castles down there. There's castles. You know what? We got castles in Ohio. Bet you didn't even know that. We got a castle about an hour away from here. Very nice place. And there's so much open there. So they worried about the kids and all that. Man, there's so much open space, the kids ain't gonna smell it, okay? And like she said about the police, I went to an event last year, Token Flow. Shout out to Token Flow. And I learned that they can have an event there, people there doing their thing, with the police there, okay? I spent an hour talking to the police with a joint in my hand. Don't ask me whether it was lit or not. But the conversation that preceded that was very in line with what she just said. Most cops don't have no problem being security at a weed event because they know people are calm, they're having fun, it's festive, it's informative actually. And they don't even understand what the big deal is. They have to re-educate their own fellow officers to lighten up, back off. One guy told me, he says, we need to educate the old school cops. Hey man, it's legal now. You can let up on a little bit. It's not that serious. Let's more worried about somebody drunk driving than somebody who might be smoking and driving. I don't necessarily think it's okay for somebody to be consuming and driving. That's a safety issue, and I think that's common sense. But where it's stored at in your vehicle while you're driving with it, I think people aren't going to be ready for when they find out, oh, you can't ride with it in your pocket no more. No, it needs to be in the trunk and away from you so that you can't be consider having an open container. So I think this is going to be an area where a lot of people are going to learn. And obviously, as the lady had mentioned, or somebody said that they had 3,700 people arrested for open container. So I think we're going to be spending a lot of time re-educating people about what open container really is, and what does that mean in alcohol, and what does it mean in cannabis. Obviously, it's two different things. Because we can't. I mean, if somebody's drinking a cup in their car with some hemp juice in it, how do you go know that's hemp juice, right? I mean, if someone is smoking hemp, how are you going to know they're smoking hemp? I mean, without definitive testing that no one has money or a budget to do it. As somebody else alluded to, has these cities thought about the increase in activity that they will have to deal with for jail? I mean, is that in the budget? And then I was talking about the equity money, because we hear a lot about the social equity fund and all that. And yes, it's gone. It's gone, y'all. We just have to face reality. But something else we also have to keep in mind is that somebody brought it up. You brought it up. A lot of these cities receive money for having a dispensary in their community. And we tried to get them at least let them get the community fund money. That money has been dispersed. So if you're watching this or on whatever platform, you live in a city where they are receiving the community fund money because you have a dispensary in your community, you should absolutely be talking to your local city council and figuring out how we can utilize that money to do what we lost. No one's thinking like that, but the money is there. They got the bag, and we need to all figure out how we can utilize that money for the greater good of the cannabis community, whether it's helping veterans, whether it's helping felons, or whether it's helping expungements. We need to be pushing that conversation forward and talking about it now before somebody else figures out another wasteless way to use that money for something else that we don't need. Because right now, I think one of the biggest things this money can go to, and I'm going to ask for it, and I've already bought cannabiseducationprogram.com, my own, and .org. Education and information. Because if we cannot get that out, how can we make progress on anything else if most of the people still don't know what we're talking about?
Yeah, I would say a community coalition that would be successful definitely has to be education-based, because the lack of education, lack of information, even about civics. You know, what goes on in our state house, what control and powers do our legislatures have? What power do we have as citizens? Right now, we have a legislation that keeps gerrymandering our districts and making it harder and harder for us to vote them out. And as they do that, they become bolder and bolder in the way that they will just flagrantly strip us of our rights. So we need to educate ourselves, we need to educate each other about what we can do to create change in our community. And we're gonna have those conversations, and we have to be above board where we're able to have those conversations with our local law enforcement, with our local elected officials, and with our officials at the state. Because if we can't have those conversations, they're just gonna shut us down. They're gonna resort back to the reefer madness where they can't separate us from alcoholics. We're not gonna get anywhere like that. So a coalition would look like a group of people that can get together, that can set aside differences, and that can make progress educating one another at the State House. Because until we change the law, they don't care. They don't care. We can write letters all day, we can go to the meeting, we can, until we change the law, until we come up with our own plan of how we can make these laws more impactful for ourselves, while we still have the rights to citizens initiative process in Ohio, we're not gonna get anywhere. We're just in the hamster wheel of activism right now. So, and the way out is to get with our lawmakers, or vote them out, get new lawmakers in, like Mike, who was here today. Other people that run for office.
Gerald, sorry.
Cool.
Do we have anyone else that wanted to?
I'll talk on it. Coalition building, I think especially in the African American community, obviously we have a huge church community, and I think we have to do better collectively of just having organic conversations about life, right? There's a lot of economic issues, there's a lot of workforce development issues, housing, right? We talk about SB 56, and I think it's like over 50% of people don't own a home in Ohio, right? We have a housing shortage, we have a housing crisis.
Yes.
So again, if a lot of people consume cannabis, you gotta consume it outside, or you can't consume it outside publicly. You can't consume in your car anymore. You can't consume legally in your apartment if you're leased. Where are you gonna consume? We don't have social lounges. We don't have delivery. So there's still a lot of like missing gaps that I feel like, education does the work. And I feel like unfortunately we're looking for outside help instead of doing the work ourselves, like I said earlier, and taking that mantle, right? Even if it's a group of 5 people, right? Like some of our parents used to do Mary Kay, and you have women groups that'll come together for every little thing. And I know as Black men, we struggle to come together for a lot of things that we're all dealing with. And I think it starts there, right? It starts with ourselves, understanding who we are, but also understanding what our community is, right? And we all have to realize we're all traumatized out of COVID, right? And I don't think we're just American. We just keep pushing through, right? It's a whole war going on. We just keep chugging. Like, it ain't going to affect us. It ain't going to, like, all right, your gas price is going higher. Your food is getting higher. And so, again, cannabis dollars can go through to the roads, right? Be careful out here. You're going to hit a pothole. So there's so much money. I mean, education, they're taking money away from education. So then you say, well, we need more educated kids. Well, you're taking away money from K through 12. You're disrupting DEI in colleges, which again, DEI, everybody thinks, oh, it's just for Black people. No, white women benefited most from DEI, right? And so we have to understand that. And so we have to stop fighting battles that aren't really our battles to fight. And so that, again, education, coalition building, speaking your truth, even though you may lose friends, when I started talking publicly about cannabis, everybody thought I was crazy, right? Here you are, clean cut, all American, degree, wife on the news, but cannabis is a destructive plant, right? Weed is a destructive plant. We have to be more destructive. What makes America great is you can be destructive, right? We support destruction. Only when you got money, though, right? But if we come together and we protect each other, right, and we vouch for one another, then it protects us. Me as an athlete, I can be as destructive on the field as possible, and I get cheered on for it, right? But as soon as I get out in the real world, shut up, all right? You don't know we just want to hear you talk about football, all right? But again, we are multidimensional, right? We can have things that we can talk about. And so I think it's important, again, speak your truth, right? Whether that's through a Substack, right? If you're a writer, if you're a musician, whatever. If you're good at public speaking, set up your computer, set up your camera, go live, right? Because again, we're all in silos at this point. A lot of us are still in silos. That's why I had this event, because I'm like, we got to start having more interpersonal connection where it's not just about going to the farmer's market and getting a bunch of weed, smelling all the weed. We have to have adult conversations. We have to have multi-tiered conversations, right? You have the boomer generation, you got Gen X, you got the millennials, all this intergenerational beef that we got going on, right? And so it's like, some of our grandmas, you need this edible. You know what I mean? Let me get you on a low dose CBD, right? Because again, a lot of you go to the church right now and everybody grandma, got a pill box, right? And so then when she passes away or something happens or she got to get another pill, we're sad. And it's like, no, we have solutions, right? But again, if people don't know the laws change. I was down at City Hall last week or the week before talking to one of the police officers, and she had no idea that SB 56 passed. She had no idea. So here I am, somebody off the street educating one of our police officers in the city of Columbus about SB 56. Like, that's crazy.
What was the memo?
Right, and why isn't policy coming down from the state house, right? Why isn't, this is our state government, they control everything. But why are so many people afraid to walk into the people's house? That's your house. I don't understand it. Go downtown, right? High Street, Monday through Friday, right? I don't know about all the protests, but protesting on a Saturday or a Sunday ain't getting shit done. All right, the politicians work Monday through Friday. If you want to disrupt some shit, you got to do it while they on the job. You got to go to their office. They have to listen to you, right? And if they don't, guess what? You embarrass them, right? You put them out, right? And that's the problem. So many people are afraid of these people. Who are they? They're just humans with a job title, right? We will talk so much trash about people we don't know, but then the people that control your legislation, the people that control how much it costs to do the roads, jobs, where we gonna put money towards, we just gonna let them skirt off and say, oh, the rich people just doing what they do, and just let them do it. But then as soon as somebody offends you for $5, you ready to go to war. And we're all struggling because of it. And that's something that, as an adult, as a 36-year-old grown man, I cannot get it through my skull why more people won't advocate for themselves at the state level, at the city level, at the county level, and then just take it, right? We'll just take it. Oh, they just giving it to us, so we'll just take it. Like, no, you gotta fight back. Where's the fight, right? Where's the discipline? Where's the will? Where's the want for a better life? This shit ain't it. Right? And if you don't got money, you're not living like I'm living. And a lot of people don't understand that. Options, I got options. Everybody don't have options, right? This is America. We supposed to have freedom. I'm looking at a lot of people that don't look free out here.
Preach, G.
Thank you so much. Karen, did you want to add?
I love everything I heard. I just add that it doesn't really take that many people to get stuff done at the local level in a lot of cases. So for things like pushing your local city government to have funding go to community reinvestment, or to make arrests for things that voters legalized and the legislature criminalized, the lowest enforcement priority, things like that you might be able to get done with a small group of organized people, and they're working at the statewide level with more folks.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much for being here today. Thank you. We're going to actually open up to question and answer. So we want to hear from you. Please keep questions to about 60 to 90 seconds so we can hear from as many people as possible. But if anyone does have any questions you'd like to discuss together collectively, the room is open.
I have a question. So like issue 2, the Ohio citizen voted, right? Like what we can buy, how we can buy it, where we can smoke it, how we can transport it. What the fuck is the Senate doing coming in on top of that? Like why, if we already spoke as the people, then why the fuck are these elected officials like Trump? Like that's not the point if we already vote. Like so just why is that, maybe this is a legislative question, like why is that, how did Senate Bill 56 materialize if we voted on issue 2?
Senator Stephen Huffman is a dig.
Sell it. Sell it. A lot of all of them are selling.
Okay, Steve, if you go Google on your phone who Stephen Huffman is. He is from Dayton, Ohio. He's from my hometown.
Probably.
And he was fired for saying black people sprayed COVID because we didn't wash our hands enough.
Yeah.
He is a racist, and he is a money-hungry asshole. So he partnered up with OCAN, who is a bunch of companies, a bunch of dispensaries, cultivators, processors who are in Ohio. And what they did was collectively shut down the hemp program. So that, because they felt like y'all are making too much money in hemp, and we should be making that money. And then he felt like y'all be spending too much money in Michigan, and we want all the money. And then he said, we don't even want y'all growing your own weed. We don't want you having nobody else's weed, but it's nothing but greed. It's nothing but greed. And then you have legislators who have money in private prisons. So when you have legislators who have money in private prisons, they don't make money when you go to jail. So then they get mad at people like me who clean your record so that you can go to work and make a decent living for yourself. Because now I done cleaned your record, so they're not making no money off of you no more. Now you get to smoke your weed legally, you get to live your life. Now they're not making any money off of you. But as soon as he comes along, you only get to smoke his weed. You only get to do what he wants you to do. It's a control mechanism. And then if you go to jail in certain states, slavery is still a thing as long as you are in jail. So understand, some of these farms that are going out of business because they can't find migrant workers, understand they are using prison labor. You get what I'm saying? Are you wrapping your head around like this is why it is going to be important to have and to do this and put this in our Constitution and erase and take slavery out of the Constitution, because we are not going to let them use prison labor. There's no way I should be able to get a job at Yankee Candle as a prisoner, and then when I get out of the prison, I should not be able to get a job as a felon to work for Yankee Candle. There's no way I should be a legislator writing laws to get me in jail, and then I own stock in a prison. This man is diabolical, he is evil, because he's coming up with no other way but how you can either go to jail or buy his weed. And that's all he did, was limit where you can get your weed. He already knows the statistics that half of these people don't own their own house, half these people have got to go to a dispensary. He already knows all the statistics. He don't care about nobody else but his bottom line. Stephen Huffman is the devil.
Legislatures are also criminal defense lawyers, or they own a criminal defense firm, so they're passing laws that's going to benefit them.
But then they defend.
They know exactly what they're doing. So during the lead up to Senate Bill 56 passage, when we were all going and lobbying at the State House, it seemed to be a clear violation of our right to reform our government, the passage of Senate Bill 56, or they were even considering changing the law that was passed by 60% of the people, higher than that, right? And I was really pretty confident, actually, that the ACLU would take up a lawsuit against them for violating our rights to reform our government. But the hard truth is there are lawmakers. So they're there to make the laws. So that harks back to our political engagement. We need every one of us to vote people out of office that are going to be so bold as go against the will of the people. Now, if they had actually interfered in our right to reform our government, like, for instance, issue 2 needed more signatures at the end, right? And a lot of people put in that, beating them, getting those last signatures, we got them all turned in. We had a 10-day window to do that under the law, right? Now, if they had stepped in and said, oh, no, you guys can't get that 10-day window, you're not going to be able to do that. Or if they had found some other shady way to keep us off the ballot, then they would have been violating our right to reform our government. They didn't do that. They let us reform our government, and then they reformed it back, because they suck. But they have the right to do that under the law. The only way to keep our lawmakers from reforming our rights is to stop asking for permission in the way of law, but instead to have a constitutional amendment. And if we have a rights-based amendment, and what I mean by that is that we have the right to have cannabis, we have the right to have ownership of a dispensary, we have the right to share it with our neighbors, we have the right to grow it, and we have the responsibility to be involved in commerce if we want to sell our home grow, or if we want to get into the business. We should have the right to get into the business. We should not have economic barriers. And the only way to do that is to put it in Article 1 of our Constitution under inalienable rights. Not under Article 18, like the monopoly that we have for our gambling casinos. but under Article 1, inalienable rights. That's where it should be. It could be done with a 2-page amendment that all of us could work together on. So that's where I think we need to go. I don't think there's any other way out where the lawmakers can't reform our law back. So that's why it happened, because they have the right to reform our law. They're elected to reform our law. But until all of us get out and vote and get out and talk to our neighbors and explain to our neighbors that we're not making any progress because of the gerrymandering and because all of these issues at the end of the day, whether or not it's housing, whether or not it's food insecurity, whether or not it's equal access to cannabis, are community rights issues. And it's going to take the community coming together to get to the finish line that we want, which is equal access.
All right, so this is always a very good question. I'm here to ask many times, how did we get here? And I know that because Senate Bill 56 was what actually became law and what was passed, I think it's important so people understand that this didn't just like appear out of nowhere. I just think that this all didn't happen overnight. Again, going back to what I've been saying repeatedly is that people aren't getting information. I mean, I think that when we talk about, and even Senator Huffman said this even in one of his hearings, is that when we first had the 2018 Farm Bill, many of us did not understand what that actually did, or did we understand the different parts about the Farm Bill or how it worked. I don't think anybody understood it. I think the whole thought was, oh, hemp is legal, and they rushed to plant some hemp seeds. I remember the governor going to Kentucky and getting some plants and coming back and planting them and saying, we planted the hemp, first hemp. And Ohio, we did not do our homework about cannabis at the beginning as a commercial thing. I think, again, we've heard many different things that Ohio overlooked. Industrial benefits of what we could have done with the wood. I think there's all these different things we could have done. As far as advertising goes, I'm sorry, Ohio, we failed on it. We did not think about it through. We should have had an age limit on hemp from the get-go. There's no way anyone in this room will sit here and say that there shouldn't have been an age limit on hemp. No one's going to say that because it's just common sense. We got age limits on everything else. Why did we not have an age limit on hemp? Why did we not have testing? Why did we not have public testing? Why did we not have compliance? When I called the agriculture department to talk to the people that ran Ohio's hemp program, and I asked them, I said, okay, you can go to Sheets or any of these places and buy these products that are not from our companies, from Ohio, they're not from here, from Indiana. Indiana is illegal. Weed's illegal in Indiana. But yet all these products from Indiana is in our state. And you're like, why? And they get this all tested supposedly. But I asked the guy, I said, does anyone go back and check to make sure what people are buying in the gas station or at Giant Eagle? Is these things legit? And then the other question was, these companies who are selling these things, where was the education for the guy that worked at Giant Eagle or that worked at Sheets? Did he get a class on cannabinoids or CBD or anything? Absolutely not. And then at the same time, when we started the whole hemp thing, we didn't make it reasonable for people to get involved, to educate it. Some people had money and farmers got into this and put a lot of money into this stuff. And then now, all of a sudden, the government wanted to shut it down and then reopen it. I mean, it's so confusing right now. We're on the cusp of paying for it with Medicare or basically banning it outright in November or at the end of the year. So I think it literally everybody from the people that originally had their reasons for getting it, and to say this very clearly that most of the companies that started out that are from Ohio, that are licensees, felt like the way it was set up is here, they could, hemp company could advertise and put all these things out, we're the dispensary, no card needed, et cetera, et cetera. But then when a licensed company tried to use things, this was totally forbidden. It just didn't make sense. So now we basically created our own division. And now here we are now. Senate Bill 56 was a number. There was Senate Bill 9, Senate Bill 160.
Tasha gotta get ready to go.
Okay, well, I'll wrap this up with saying it like this, is that, again, the bottom line is that in order for any of this stuff to be fixed and sorted out, all the groups together will have to come together and we'll have to figure out the way forward. It can't be done separately, individually. If we've already watched how that worked and many people were confused. So I'll just say it like this. We have to come together as a whole, and this is going to be people not agreeing with each other, but we still have to be able to move forward. I thank y'all for being here, and I know our time's up, but it's been a great experience for me to be here and meet and talk with all of you.
Yeah, that's definitely.
I just wanted to say before I had to leave, thank you for having me, and thank you, Gerald, for putting this together and starting the conversations, especially during this month of April where everything is chaotic. The city of Sandusky just a couple of hours ago put into effect a temporary protection order
Yeah.
for the hemp.
Yep. Yeah, they sued, right?
They sued the governor, and
The
so they put in an injunction, so they're now going to not be putting in law enforcement. They're not going to enforce the law. And so now other cities are going to start putting that. What we really need is a cannabis and hemp compromise, which is what I've been asking for. And so I'm going to ask Gerald and I'm going to ask Anthony to come down to Dayton and help me host a Ohio cannabis hemp compromise, like we did the peace talks in Bosnia, because that's what this is like. We go to war. We go on war. Because not only does this have to last till November, but this is the setup for me till after November, and we get in a new governor. But this to me is the setup so that we can show that hemp is the foundation, cannabis is the flower, but what we need is to be able to interstate commerce. And when we can finally interstate commerce, we will be able to internationally commerce. And when people can see this is a global movement and how hemp can build houses, hemp is something that is so astronomically greater, but cannabis is for the human body. Hemp is for the earth, but cannabis is for the human body. And that is how we take care of ourselves and the planet. And this is how we make ourselves and the world better. We can change the world with one plant and two purposes. We can actually change the entire planet. You can't even imagine some of the things that we can, a hemp battery for electric cars. All these new planes or things that we can do. We are going to change the world for this. I'm in Dayton, Ohio. We are the home of aviation. Yes, that's said, focus, get out. Thank you. Well, we can do this. And so I'm inviting all of you who are listening, all of you who are here to Dayton, Ohio. We're gonna figure this out. If we have to have a protest, if we have to have a rally, but we are gonna have an Ohio Cannabis Compromise. And we're gonna make it so that we can interstate commerce, internationally commerce, and we're not gonna stop until we can get it. So thank you for the start, thank you for the seed, thank you for that first conversation. And I'll see you at the finish line.
Yes, ma'am. Thanks for being here. People know where let the people know where they can find you at, social media, stuff like that.
Yeah, what's true?
You can find me on Facebook or Instagram,
Tasha Roundtree.
Tasha Roundtree.
Thank you, Tasha.
Make that picture right now. Let me get that picture. There you go.
I think interstate commerce is a huge barrier right now with the federal level of our legalization. But if we did have a rights-based amendment in Ohio, we could for sure write in there rights to interstate commerce.
Okay, come on, we know.
They could challenge it later. They do it all the time. They write laws and then we have to challenge them. We can do the same.
So I wanted to get to your question too, is we have to show up and keep these lawmakers accountable, right? Like I said, when I started covering the policy making and seeing just how little people were aware of what was actually going on, right? These dudes were on the record saying the wildest stuff. And it's like there was no real accountability, right? And so again, you have a whole group of people who just become outcasts again because Now we're gonna keep doing these same tropes on, what cannabis can do. And at the end of the day, we have to be involved in our state legislature, right? We have to know what's going on at the state, right? The state gets the federal government dollars, right? And then they distribute it how they want to distribute it, right? We're getting all these data centers, we're getting all these, they're giving billions of dollars to tech gurus, right? We got the thing going in, doing or AI drones, right? That's all coming down from the state level politicians, right? And so again, we got farmers. Ohio's an agricultural state. Why the fuck are we not growing hemp? That makes no sense. Like, you should be able to drive down the street and see fields of hemp, right? But now, obviously with the Trump tariffs, they're not selling that corn and soybean. But guess what? Had they got on the hemp train,
Let's do it right
they
here.
have another alternative, right? It creates other businesses, right? You have over 50,000 different uses for hemp, right? And so think about all the industries that can start from that, all the small businesses that can start from that, right? You got clothing, right? Textiles. We have cleaning the oil or cleaning the ground, right? Cleaning the air.
You ready?
So there's just so many different uses. But again, if we're illiterate in this space and we refuse to have conversations like this, then more people aren't aware of what's really
I just want to make sure we got it. So I can get you on the site, girl.
Right? I tell people I'm getting ground.
You better be there too.
Because at the end of the day, it's not making
Did you get that information from the hotel?
chaotic. It's not putting me in our place. I feel balanced, right? And so I think the more that we have these open discussions, the more that we share our stories, the more that we're willing to support other people in these spaces, we can change hearts and minds. But also, we got to get these dudes out of office. You know what I mean? And again, everybody has, I don't care if you're right or left, right? We get it. Everybody's entitled to their own thoughts and opinions. But you also have to realize that we're still in the same ecosystem. So just because you vote for this way doesn't mean it's not going to affect you on the back end. Right, and we're seeing that now, right? A lot of people voted, I didn't think this was gonna happen. A lot of us saw the writing on the wall. You know what I mean? And so, if you want to choose to be ignorant, right? If you want to choose to be malicious in your intent and how you live your life, everything's on the record now. That's why a lot of people are afraid of social media, right? Because you can't hide anymore. You can be exposed very easily. And why are all these people in positions of power getting exposed all of a sudden? Because now we have platforms, we have the internet, we have TikTok, we have Facebook, we have Instagram. We can't hide anymore. And they've been doing this for a long, we act like this shit is new. You know what I mean? Like, I come from a community, we've been enslaved. You know what I mean? In this land, we haven't gotten reparations for that. But now we come into this industry and it's like, oh, well, what was the war on drugs about? Right? Like, we was making money. We was taking care of our families and communities. Now you legalize and criminalize people for using a plant and trying to fix up their community. Why? Because you weren't getting the tax dollars. Now they're getting the tax money, right? Oh, the jails, people, you can't go to jail anymore. Now you can go back to jail, right? Because that's an income source for Ohio. Ohio has perfected the private prison system, right? Off of what? Weed. That's what it is. Like, most people is not violent criminals on weed, right? But I could pop you for, probable cause. It smelled like weed, I'm gonna throw a baggie in your car. Now I'm gonna throw 5 baggies in your car. Or you just traveling with 5 baggies. Now it's attempted distribute, right? Then you go to jail, now you're getting fight in jail, now we're gonna keep you there longer. We don't have the lawyers, we don't have the protections. So again, it's the same thing in Appalachia. We're gonna criminalize the poor people in Athens, right? We're gonna put you in our county jails, and that's what we're gonna do. And we're gonna perpetuate that system. Then you get out, you can't get a job. So then what you go do? You go do something illegal, you go sell some dope, now you get caught back up, all right? And so it's a cycle. And so we have to realize at some point as Americans, we gotta break the cycle, right? You gotta stop leaving it up to people with the money. We can go to Upper Arlington right now. There's a moratorium there. Every rich suburb in Columbus, there's a moratorium against cannabis. Why? Oh, we don't want those people coming into our communities, right? That's the idea. So we have to understand what's the tropes going on, what's the thought processes, and we got to speak up. I know you're a little bit younger, but it's like younger generations got to take on that mantle, right? My generation, millennials, we're not babies, we're not kids no more. You know what I mean? The boomers may have an idea, Gen X may have an idea. we didn't buy a home for $70,000 that's now worth $300,000. Right? So again, we don't have the 401k plans. So again, we have to build a coalition amongst ourselves, do the work, do the research, study, put down the ego, have conversations with people that may look different than you, come from a different community than you, and that's how we get the laws at the State House to represent more of us instead of an elite class. So I would say just be more involved.
So,
Anybody have any more questions or everybody good?
I have a statement, not a question.
What's the statement? Let's hear it.
So, the whole thing I got from this was, the one statement you kept making over and over again across the panel was community, is need for community. I believe that we already have that here. What we don't have is a sense of understanding amongst each other in our separate communities, right? So there's no conversation going on to say, these are the issues we're dealing with in the urban setting, these are the issues we're dealing with in the Appalachian setting, right? But the community in itself is the key. What we're missing is, we already have the rights and the privileges to do these things. I get excited. We've been given and granted rights and privileges through the Constitution. And one of them is the practice and choice of freedom of religion. So I think if you look at both communities, church is a part of those communities, right? But we don't go and worship together. There's millions of churches out here, but no one goes and worships together. So if we can have conversation to bring the community together about that, right? But I already think I found the answer, because cannabis brings the community together. So if you smoke a joint, you say, hey man, somebody want it, they're not looking at the color of your skin. They're like, okay, what is this? Where'd you get it from? How'd you come to this? Get back to it. We already have the religious rights to do it in the Constitution under the First Amendment. So through plant stewardship, right? If you're a plant steward and you're just growing, I don't give a damn if you grow allocations or if you grow zinnias, those flowers. It's from A to Z, we got it covered. Cannabis falls in the middle of it. So if you're a gardener, an urban gardener, a farmer, a plant enthusiast, if you're fucking with tissue cultures, clones, or seeds, if you find that to be a form of meditation or prayer, then you're executing your right of religious freedom and spiritual practice. Now, all you need is a place to house this. Well, guess what? I created a community housing. It's called Rooted Community. So whether you're a gardener, like I said, or a cultivator, there's a place for you to come and be recognized and commune with one another. And you don't have to go get a goddamn license. You ain't gotta go get no medical approval. All you're doing is practicing your spiritual development. 5, you're practicing your spiritual development and enhancement with and alongside of the Creator. I don't care if you call him Jehovah. I don't care what you call him. Yahweh, Jesus, Allah. It's all covered, and you don't have to ask for any permission. So it's here if we can have these conversations. You know, just come have these conversations, these places, these gatherings. We don't have to ask for permission. I'm 45 years old. They're not asking for permissions to go to war. You know, I'm saying I'm 45. We've had war, continuous war my whole lifetime. They're not asking for permission to go to war. We shouldn't have to ask for permission to come together and grow food and medicine to make ourselves better people. That's it.
Thank you for that.
it sounds a little bit like a rights-based.
Yeah. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it comes down to us understanding our rights, right, as humans, right? Like, so I think religious freedom, that was something that I understood early on, right? Like, why don't we have like community or cannabis churches, right? And spaces like that. But again, it's been so ingrained, especially in the Black community, right? That weed, that devil's lettuce, right? And so a lot of us have been conditioned by that. And so that stokes that fear in us. So I think we just got to get bold in those actions, support community-based organizations like yourself, like our nonprofit. That's what we do, right? We're community gardeners, urban gardeners. We work with Central State University. Central State has a hemp program. Dr. Craig is on our board, and so literally we are trying at every level to educate. And I think as community, we just have to keep building on that and keep creating spaces like this, right, where we can have more dialogue, where it's not just focused on certain things, right? It's more community based. So I think that's what will help us all. So I'll go ahead and say thank you, man. Thank you to everybody who volunteered. Thank you to the panel for sharing. Thanks to Karen. Thanks to our DJ for the mic setup. Thanks to Mike for being a social equity sponsor. Shout out to all of our sponsors. I couldn't have done this without y'all. Thanks to Kenny for allowing me to be the president of the nonprofit Green Environmental Outreach. Please follow us and support. I've been doing a lot. I've been trying to figure out a way to work cannabis into what we do without it being so frowned upon. And so what I've learned is we have to educate, right? I think that's the through line through what we've talked about. And I think a lot of times we look at education as, institutionalized education, right? Instead of learning from his experience, learning from her experience, learning from my experience, right? And so we have to kind of get out of this mindset of institutionalized education for everything. Because what you're going to learn from this is not necessarily what they're going to teach you at OU. Right, it's not, and again, there's those are privileges, right? To go to Ohio State, how much does it cost, right? Barrier to entry. So, like they talked, or like you said earlier, the Ohio State Law Department covers all of this stuff, but they're not sending that information out. So unless you're like somebody like myself and actually following that work, you have no idea. Shout out to Kat Packard. I don't think she could make it. But Kat Packer is somebody who's been doing a lot of great work in the cannabis space, social equity space, and she's housed over in OSU. But a lot of times when people have these contracts or they're under these umbrellas, it's harder for them to speak out. It's harder for them to branch out. And so I think a lot of us just have to get used to branching out and being okay with maybe being on an island with a smaller group of people, right? So keep speaking up, keep sharing. If you follow Ohio Cannabis Report, I appreciate you. Follow Ohio Cannabis Live. Anthony does a lot of great work, man, and I truly appreciate him. Working through his things that he works through. Sarah Koya, again, powerhouse, right? Be a powerhouse in your community, right? If you live in a smaller town, a smaller city, go to your city council, right? Contact your state representative. You have to do that work. We have to do it, and then collectively come together and build. So again, thanks to everybody for coming. I got some App Girls Cannabis. Again, they're not selling this stuff like that no more here because of SB 56. So go ahead and help yourself to some App Girls Cannabis, and I appreciate y'all for coming through. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Smoke some weed, man.